Focused on leadership and communication to build your knowledge, authority, visibility, and influence as a leader. 6 dimensions: intelligence, the regulating and recalibrating; integrity, intelligence, trust, unification, intelligence, procedure, leverage, and results. Intelligence.
Welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. Hey, I really want you to listen up because this is exactly where many capable leaders get stuck. This is about you, right? This isn't about you leading your team. This is really about you leading yourself. Now, if people can see your work, but they can't see your leadership, what you might be doing is proving your capability while you're actually hiding your readiness to be more in the organization or the industry that you're working in. Because what happens is that if you deliver, you follow through and you get the results, and that's really awesome. But whenever there's bigger opportunities, whenever there are stretch assignments, whenever there are promotions, there's no mention of your name. Now, that's not because you're not good enough. It's actually because the people making the decisions, they might see that output, they might see that you deliver, but they're not experiencing or seeing the leadership that sits behind this. They see task completed, they see deadline met, they see results delivered, but they do not see your judgment. They don't see your influence in any way. And the question that is relevant at this point is, do they see your ability to operate beyond your current role? Because at certain leadership levels, opportunity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from being seen differently. I'm going to repeat that. It comes from being seen differently. My name is Beth Bergen. I'm a global leadership and communication coach, and I'd love it if you would join me as I discuss how others might experience your leadership and how understanding how they experience your leadership is likely to benefit you. And where we're going to start is with the first gap that capable leaders miss. And this is the difference between your visible work and your visible leadership. So I think I've got 4 or 5 points that I want to share with you today, and then I'll give you a leadership intelligence tool that you can implement straight away. We'll look at a reflection question, and in our usual format, then we'll look at what our key learnings have been. So our first talking point is this. Output visibility is not the same as a leadership visibility. If you're seen as busy, reliable, relatable, productive, that you can deliver, that doesn't mean that people see your leadership capacity at all, because leadership is about how you're thinking, how you're deciding, how you're influencing, how you're guiding your team beyond the actual task that they're doing. Now, it's easy for you. It's easy for me. It's easy for lots of us to assume I'm demonstrating that I've got this. I'm demonstrating strong delivery. So everyone's going to think I'm ready to take on more challenges. I'm ready for a promotion. All that does, that strong delivery, all that it does is it confirms that you are really competent at your current role. Output proves that you're capable. That's it. It doesn't prove automatically that you're ready for more. And so, as I said at the beginning, this is the gap that many capable leaders miss. So, if this feels like you, keep listening because I know you'll get a real lot out of the other things that come up today. So, the second point is this: if people only see the finished work, then they're likely to miss the leadership behind it. Like, leadership can be less visible. We don't talk about how we've managed the stakeholders, how we've negotiated uncertainty, how we've resolved tension between stakeholders and team or team members, how we've made judgment calls. We don't talk about how we've protected the outcomes. That kind of leadership isn't visible unless you talk about it. So you actually need to communicate this. Otherwise, only the end result is seen. So it's not just what you did, it's how you led yourself and your team and all of the parties who are involved in whatever, and all of the stakeholders, rather, who are involved in the product or project. It's about actually talking about how you led everyone through that. Now, I know for a lot of my clients, they're kind of going, I am not bragging in this way. It isn't about you bragging. This is about what you need to do to make your leadership judgment visible. So chuck your idea that it's bragging out. This is you communicating about your leadership judgment, because if you don't communicate about it, people can't see it. There's a real opportunity that sits between the work that you've completed and your leadership thinking. And it's not seen or shared, but this is where the opportunity is for you to be talking. If others are only seeing the result, not the leadership that it took to get there, then what happens is you're missing that opportunity. Yeah. So this kind of comes back to you. We know that that thinking is likely to be happening. It's about how you're actually choosing to communicate that thinking. And that brings us to point 3, which is that your communication is key. If you want to be seen as the next level, then others around you need to hear next level thinking. You need to be speaking about your next level thinking. See, if what you're doing is talking about now, your current level of communication is probably about explaining the task. It's probably about updates and giving people progress. Your next level, leadership thinking communication, has to frame decisions, risks, the options, the impact of the decision that you make, the direction that you're looking to take. Because if you only talk about what you've done, people only see you as a person who gets things done. If you only talk about what's been done, people only see you as a person who gets things done. Now, I've repeated that because it's really important. You must connect the work that you've achieved to broader priorities in the organization, to broader priorities and the organization's why, so that what you're actually doing is lifting your communication from talking about the activity to talking about the impact. And that's really important. So, as I said, your communication is key, and a lot of that is around the language that you're using and how often you're talking and demonstrating your leadership thinking. Our fourth point for today is this: quiet capability can become a real visibility problem. Like your work, no doubt, your work speaks for itself. However, if you fall into this belief that, my work speaks for itself, soon as they need someone, they'll call on me. Your work may be speaking for itself, but potentially it's not saying enough. It's easy to believe, look, this is, I'm good. And that comes from us being humble. It comes from a point of integrity. And for many of us, and I know this is certainly true for many of my clients, they look around and they see how other people are behaving when it comes to self promotion, and they just go, no way, I am not doing that. So, the critical thing here is that you understand that visibility is not vanity, it's part of influence. And others can't advocate for you if they don't fully understand your contribution. Now, it's important, and when I work with my clients, we work a lot around being authentic and doing things that you're comfortable with when it comes to self promotion. When we call it self promotion, I know a lot of people go, no, 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 that is not me. Visibility is part of influence. And if you're not talking about it, then people don't know what your leadership thinking is. The fifth point I want to talk to is this: your leadership visibility is the accumulation of a lot of small moments. Now, if you've listened to Leadershipisation, all things leadership, either in these lives or in the podcasts that are now available, what you'll know is that I say all the time there's a whole lot of silly little vitally important things or vitally important moments that occur. And leadership visibility is an accumulation of a lot of those silly little vitally important moments. It's not your leadership isn't only visible through presentations that you do or performance reviews or chats about promotional opportunities. It's there every moment of every day in how you contribute in meetings, the kinds of questions you ask and how you ask them, how you frame up issues, and particularly how you respond under pressure. So others around you are going to notice when you bring calm, when you bring clarity, when you bring a sense of understanding, and you're able to analyze the situation, when you bring a judgment or your perspective to the table. That's what they understand, and they're your peers and senior leaders. Their perception of you and your ability as a leader is built in all of those moments. Yeah, those repeated small moments over and over again. Now, I want to remind you about something here. Leadership is not a performance. It's not about me saying to you, now go away and just perform being a leader. That isn't how it is. Your goal is to make your leadership more observable. And so make sure that you're talking about them. Now, the really interesting thing here is that for a lot of us, those sorts of things that I'm talking about as small moments, we see as being ordinary. We just see them. Oh, okay, well, I do that all the time. I do that without thinking. A whole lot of that stuff that you do without thinking because it's part of who you are, if you're not communicating that leadership thinking in some way, others, I can't advocate for you because they don't fully understand your contribution. So this comes back to how well you're communicating and how well you're demonstrating in those small, vitally important moments what a great leader you already are, and how you're ready and willing to continue to grow those skills. Let's look now at an appropriate leadership intelligence tool. But before we do that, I'm going to take a sip of water. Oh, thank you. I really needed that. So, the leadership intelligence tool that we're going to use today is what I've called the leadership signal sentence. Now, what I'm looking to give you here is one simple sentence. One simple sentence that you can use that is going to help to start you with getting that visibility about your leadership out there. One simple sentence. What I want you to do is to try and use this at least once a day, potentially. Let's try for a minimum of 3 times in the next week. Yeah. You might want to write this down. The sentence is this: the leadership decision here was dot, dot, dot. The leadership decision here was dot, dot, dot. Now, what is this not? This isn't about you talking about the task or an update or an activity. It's actually about you referring to the leadership decision. And you can use this when you're giving an update, when you're contributing in a meeting, in a debrief, if you're discussing some kind of result, if you're explaining a decision. Now, I'll give you an example. Right now, your normal language, and we talked about this earlier, we've got to upgrade our language. So your normal language or communication might be just to say the project is on track. Oh, people will be really impressed with that. Yes, they're getting the things done that we need them to get done. Yay, that's fantastic. However, if you can add to it in this way using the sentence starter that I've given you. I'm going to give you an example. Either the project is on track, that's it, or the project is on track and the leadership decision here was to prioritize stakeholder alignment early because that was the biggest risk to our momentum. And then you stop. It lifts it. Can you feel how much that actually lifts it? The project is on track, and the leadership decision here was to prioritize stakeholder alignment early because that was the biggest risk to our momentum. What you're saying is, I went out and I chatted to those people. I made the decision to go and chat to those people to get them online early so that we could then do the work that we needed to do. That's smart thinking. That's actually leadership. And what it does is it lifts the statement, your initial statement, without overstating it, without you feeling, oh, there's a lot of bragging going on here. The leadership decision here was. Because what we want to do is we want to show the judgment, the influence, and the decision making. So it's about naming that decision so that people can actually see the leadership. Now, I know that you will find that a terrific tool to be able to use to start getting your leadership thinking a lot more visible with the people in your organization who matter. This is also something that you could use in a resume, in a resume or a CV, in a letter of application, and definitely that you should be using in an interview situation. Okay, let's look now at the reflection question for this week. And again, write it down, think about it, write down what you've come up with, come back to it. come back to it, and write some more, because we want you to actually self-reflect, because that self-awareness is really going to underpin your leadership growth. So today, the reflection question is, where am I expecting my work to prove my readiness when I have not made my leadership visible enough to be recognized? Now, for some of you, this might be a really easy answer. It might be everywhere. It might be everywhere. It may be for some of you specifically when you're having those peer to peer or at level conversations. For others, it might be, yeah, I'm cool with my peers. It's when I'm talking to people above me, my seniors. That's when I'm expecting my work to prove that I'm ready. So this reflection question will give you some insight into who you need to begin changing your language with. Although I would highly recommend just change it all round, because it's easier. Your team could do to understand with why you've made a decision as well. So our key takeaways today. The first one is capable, being a doer, being a completer, getting stuff done, and having a reputation for doing that. It's not the same as being ready. Seniors need to see the thinking, the judgment, and the influence that is there. It's embedded in your leaderships. And it'll be good for you to learn to articulate that anyway. Like, people need to see that, and that will help to elevate you. And the final point, I think, is really, and this is kind of a small one, that visibility is part of leadership. It's not about you thinking, oh, I won't do that because people will think I'm vain or I'm big noting myself. It's not vanity. That next level, it's part of leadership. So, if your work is visible but your leadership is not, perhaps you're trusted to deliver, but you're overlooked for opportunities. There's no need for you to be louder. There's no need for you to be in people's faces all the time. But it is important that you take responsibility for how your leadership is understood out there with your peers, and definitely up there with others who might be making decisions about opportunities. Because even though we've built trust in great work, to be seen as ready requires people seeing the leadership behind the work. So, if today's conversation has made you realize that your capability is visible, but your leadership might not be, use the QR code or use the link in the platform that you're watching or listening to this on to book a call with me. I'd love to have a conversation with you about it, because sometimes next level is not about working harder. It's about making the leadership that you already have easier to see. Because if they only see what you deliver, they may never see that you're ready to lead. So thank you so much for being here today. If you've got questions or comments, please make a note of them on the platform that you're watching or listening to this on. Like, share, and subscribe so we can get the podcast out to more people. And please reach out if you've got some thoughts about this. There will be more on this topic of being seen differently by your peers and by the people in your organization who are the decision makers. There'll be a lot more of that to follow over the coming weeks of the live podcast. Thank you so much. Bye now.